There is a moment in every confrontation when the outcome is decided before it even begins. Not when you speak, not when you argue, but when the other person looks for a sign of instability in you and doesn't find it. Most people don't lose conflicts because they are weaker. They lose because they can be moved, emotionally, visibly, predictably. And the moment you are moved, you are led. Breathe slowly. Don't rush. There is no need. What follows is not about winning arguments. It is about becoming impossible to destabilize. And when you become impossible to destabilize, power rearranges itself around you. Niccolò Machiavelli observed a truth modern people prefer to avoid. Control does not belong to the moral, nor to the loud. Control belongs to the one who understands the nature of human reactions and does not become their prisoner. Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, not because they are superficial, but because perception is faster than reason. In a confrontation, no one has time to evaluate your logic in depth, but everyone evaluates your stability within seconds, your voice, your gaze, your breathing rhythm, the pauses between sentences. That is where it's decided whether you are pressure sensitive. And if you are pressure sensitive, you are controllable. This is the first uncomfortable reality. Confrontations are not duels of ideas. They are tests of inner structure. Whoever remains stable controls the frame. Whoever reacts enters someone else's frame. And the frame decides everything. Baldassare Castiglione called this sprezzatura, the art of making difficult things look effortless. A form of strategic elegance. No rush, no rigidity, no need for validation. People confuse this with naturalness. It's not naturalness, it's concealed discipline. Because the primal instinct wants reaction, wants defense, wants an immediate comeback. But rapid reaction makes you readable, and whoever can read you can lead you. Sun Tzu wrote that the supreme form of superiority is to win without fighting. Psychologically, that means refusing to enter the emotional game proposed by the other person. When you refuse the predictable reaction, you create imbalance. The other person comes prepared for resistance, finds stillness, prepares for conflict, finds control. Their mind searches for reference points, receives none, and begins to doubt. That is where power shifts, not because you said something brilliant, but because you refused to submit to the imposed rhythm. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Most people take this as a motivational quote. Wrong. It is a strategic instruction. The external event is the challenge. Your mind is the command center. If the event controls the command center, you have already lost before speaking. That brings us to the first lesson. First, people trust stability, not justifications. When pressured, the temptation is to over-explain, to clarify, to prove. But excessive explanation signals need. Need signals vulnerability, and vulnerability shifts the balance of power. Niccolò Machiavelli stated the cold mechanics. Men are driven by appearances as much as by reality. He didn't say a little, he said as much. Under tension, the appearance of stability becomes social reality. Two people. One is right, but rushes, gestures nervously, voice rising. The other is partly wrong, but speaks slowly, breathes deeply, maintains eye contact. Who seems more credible? The collective mind associates calm with competence, agitation with insecurity, not because it's fair, but because it's cognitively efficient.
That means your first task in a confrontation is not to be right. It is to appear unshakable. Presence before argument.
Karl von Clausewitz described friction, the inevitable chaos of conflict. Under friction, perfect plans collapse. What remains is the internal structure of the person acting. In modern confrontations, friction is emotional. Whoever does not disintegrate under pressure becomes an anchor point, and anchor points lead. Imagine a tense room, voices overlapping, accelerated pace, abrupt gestures, and one still person. All eyes go there inevitably. Calm becomes gravitational. It does not ask for attention, it attracts it. That is not charisma, it is perceived stability. And perceived stability generates spontaneous authority. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll notice something uncomfortable. The moments you lost control were not losses of argument, but losses of inner rhythm. Inner rhythm is the infrastructure of power. If breathing accelerates, thinking narrows. If the voice trembles, the message weakens. If movements become chaotic, perception turns negative. The body betrays before words do. Irving Goffman called this impression management. In any social interaction, each person projects a role. The difference is that some perform roles while others project identity. Roles crack under pressure, identity holds. That's why self-control is not theatrical technique. It is visible inner structure. When you don't rush to respond, you signal an abundance of control. When you allow pauses, you signal comfort with silence. When your gaze is steady, you signal the absence of social fear. All of these raise the cost of provoking you, and people avoid high costs. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote, "Men offend either from fear or hatred. If you offer neither, their aggression loses fuel. You don't appear threatened, you don't appear offended, you don't appear rushed. They lose leverage. This is strategic stability, not passivity, superior positioning. Whoever can afford to slow down leads. Whoever rushes negotiates from scarcity. And scarcity is felt. When you don't feel a lack of validation, a lack of time, a lack of control, others feel it, and they relate to you differently. They no longer negotiate with your reactions, they negotiate with your presence. That is where the transfer of power begins. And this is only the first level. Second, control of the body precedes control of the mind. Most people try to calm their thoughts directly as if the mind were a switch, but in confrontation, the order is reversed. Physiology leads psychology. You cannot negotiate with adrenaline using pure logic. The nervous system does not speak the language of arguments. It speaks the language of rhythm, breathing, posture, vocal tempo, mechanical precision of movement. These are the real commands. William James observed that we do not cry because we are sad. We feel sad because we cry. Emotion follows physical response. Reverse the flow and you alter the experience. In confrontation, your body decides whether your mind enters defense mode or strategy mode. Shallow breathing compresses thinking. Deep breathing expands perspective. Tense shoulders signal threat. Relaxed muscles signal internal safety. Fragmented eye movement says avoidance. A steady gaze says I can hold pressure. All of this is read instantly, without conscious deliberation. Antonio Damasio demonstrated that decisions are not purely logical. They are guided by somatic markers, bodily signals that shape judgment. When your body communicates stability,
Others feel coherence and grant you cognitive credibility before you even speak. That is why the second layer of mastery is not mental. It is biomechanical. Deliberately slow your movements, remove nervous microgestures, sit without lateral agitation, leave real space between sentences. Pauses create psychological space. Psychological space creates authority. When you do not rush to fill silence, you signal that you are not constrained by social discomfort. Most people flee silence. Whoever can sustain it becomes a reference point. Raymond Cattell distinguished fluid intelligence from crystallized intelligence. Under tension, fluid thinking collapses if physiological arousal is too high. Body control preserves access to flexible reasoning. Without it, you react rigidly. Rigidity is predictable. Predictability is manipulable. There is also a mirroring effect. Nervous systems synchronize involuntarily. Your rhythm becomes the reference. If you remain slow and steady, the other person gradually adjusts intensity, not through persuasion, but through automatic social regulation. That is influence without visible effort. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory explains that tone of voice and facial expression signal safety or threat. A steady, grounded vocal tone activates connection rather than combat. You become easier to listen to without raising volume. Speech speed is a status signal. Haste implies internal pressure. Measured pace implies resource control. When you reduce speed to roughly 2/3 of normal, each word gains weight, not theatrical. Strategic economy. Visible, still hands reduce suspicion. Wide, repetitive gestures suggest instability. Economy of movement communicates self-assurance. Nicolaus Tinbergen showed that simple signals can trigger powerful behavioral responses. In human interaction, signals of calm trigger cooperation. You don't need long arguments when your body communicates safety. This is not stage performance. It is visible internal alignment. When breathing, posture, and voice are coherent, your message no longer competes with your own signals. Coherence reduces noise. And in tense environments, clarity dominates. Machiavelli would call this the art of controlled appearance, not deception, prevention. You refuse to be governed by impulse. Your presence becomes both shield and lever. Master the body, the mind aligns, the frame stabilizes, and once the frame stabilizes, others negotiate inside it. This is the second lesson. Third, detachment breaks the chain of provocation. Every confrontation contains an invisible hook. It is not the argument, not the tone. It is the temptation to take everything personally. Someone questions your competence, undermines your position, challenges your value in front of others. Instantly, the primitive mind interprets it as a status threat. And to the human psyche, status equals social survival. That is why the reaction is intense. Heat in the chest, narrowed attention, the urge to respond immediately. But that very reaction locks you into the other person's game. Whoever can make you react can steer you. Machiavelli stated it coldly. People act more from passion than reason. The moment you enter the zone of passion, you surrender strategic advantage. Detachment is not indifference. It is separation between stimulus and decision. An inner distance where you are not forced to react just because you were triggered. Viktor Frankl wrote that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. In confrontation, that space is the territory of power. Without it, you are reflex. With it, you are will. Detachment lets you see the mechanics of the situation, not just its surface.
Not they're attacking me, but they're attempting to provoke. Not I'm being insulted, but they're testing limits. That shift of frame converts emotion into information. Information is analyzed, emotion is discharged. Those who discharge emotion lose position. Those who analyze information gain options. Epictetus warned that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about them. In confrontation, premature judgment creates unnecessary escalation. If every word becomes a personal offense, conversation becomes war. If every word becomes contextual data, conversation remains negotiable. Detachment preserves negotiability. There is also a reputational dimension. When you do not react impulsively, people learn they cannot gain emotional leverage over you. Their tools stop working, and people abandon tactics that fail. Albert Ellis emphasized that interpretations create reactions. Reframe the attack as projection, insecurity, or strategy, and intensity drops without theatrical suppression. This is not repression. It is cognitive recalibration. Instead of defending identity, you protect objectives. Instead of winning the moment, you win direction. Detachment shifts focus from ego to outcome. Sun Tzu taught that effective leadership requires mental clarity in turbulence. Clarity does not come from the absence of pressure, but from distance from impulse. When you are not drowning in the wave, you can read the current. You see when to speak, when to remain silent, when to ask instead of contradict. A well-placed question disarms more effectively than a sharp rebuttal, because it shifts the exchange from confrontation to analysis. Soren Kierkegaard wrote of choice as an act of inner responsibility. Under pressure, choosing not to react immediately is an act of sovereignty, not weakness. Strategic delay. Strategic delay buys proportionality. Is it worth the energy, worth escalation, worth public conflict? Most confrontations dissolve when they are not fed emotional fuel. Detachment cuts the supply. Machiavelli understood that accumulated resentment creates durable enemies. Impulsive reactions generate long-term adversaries. Emotional control preserves future options. Options are strategic capital. When you don't burn bridges through outbursts, you can negotiate later from stronger positions. Detachment keeps you cool without becoming rigid, engaged without becoming exposed, present without becoming inflammable. This is the third lesson. Fourth, calm converts tension into leverage. Most people experience tension as a threat, something to escape, something to silence quickly. But tension is concentrated social energy. And energy, if it doesn't destabilize you, can be directed. Whoever remains steady inside a charged environment becomes the point of balance. And points of balance attract influence, not because they demand authority, but because others instinctively seek stability. Machiavelli understood that power is not declared, it is observed. In the middle of disorder, people scan their surroundings for signals of control. The one who appears unaffected becomes the reference. The reference sets the rhythm. Rhythm shapes the conversation. Conversation shapes the outcome. That is invisible leverage. When you don't add to the noise, your silence gains weight. When you don't accelerate conflict, your restraint becomes the standard. Kurt Lewin formulated field theory. Behavior organizes itself around dominant forces in a social environment. Consistent calm gains psychological mass. It becomes an organizing force. You don't need to persuade, you need to remain stable. Repeated stability becomes implicit authority. Hannah Arendt distinguished power from violence. Violence is loud and brief. Power is quiet and durable.
Calm belongs to the second category. When others raise their voices, they spend energy. When you remain composed, you accumulate credibility.
Credibility converts into decision influence. Watch a tense room carefully. After prolonged escalation, the group searches for a voice that can structure the situation. Not the loudest voice, the most coherent one. Coherence becomes functional authority. Max Weber described legitimacy as voluntary acceptance of leadership. Consistent calm earns legitimacy without formal status. People cooperate more easily with those who do not intensify friction. This is leverage, influence without force. Your calm lowers the emotional temperature of the environment. Lower temperature increases collective thinking capacity. Higher thinking capacity favors rational solutions. You become useful. Usefulness is practical power. Carl Rogers showed that congruent presence facilitates openness in others. When you are not defensive, others become less defensive. Your state sets the relational tone. This is not manipulation, it is interpersonal regulation. When your energy remains low and steady, others unconsciously adjust their intensity to maintain social synchronization. A quiet alignment forms. Alignment reduces conflict. Reduced conflict creates space for decisions. Machiavelli would call this using circumstances rather than fighting them. You don't resist the context, you shape it through presence. When tension rises, you become the directional vector. Direction determines outcome. Sustained calm allows you to speak in short, clear, solution-oriented statements. The group receives them more easily because they do not come from agitation. Let's structure the steps. Let's clarify the priority. Let's separate facts from interpretations. Simplicity stabilizes. Herbert Simon demonstrated that people operate with bounded rationality. Under stress, cognitive capacity shrinks further. Calm reduces collective cognitive load. You reduce complexity. You increase clarity. You accelerate agreement. This is real leverage, turning tension into an opportunity to lead without dominating. Calm does not isolate you. It positions you at the center, and the center does not move with every impulse. The center defines movement. This is the fourth lesson. Fifth, consistency builds a reputation that fights in your place. One moment of composure impresses. A pattern of composure defines identity. And identity, repeated long enough, becomes reputation. Reputation is delegated power. When people know what to expect from you, they stop testing limits randomly. They calibrate their behavior before the interaction even begins. You prevent conflicts before they form. Machiavelli understood that consistent perception shapes political reality. An unpredictable leader erodes trust. A steady one creates anticipatory order. Anticipatory order means less friction. When you are reliably calm under pressure, a label forms, unshakable. And once labels settle, they become social filters. People treat you through their lens of you. The lens sets the initial tone. The initial tone shapes the dynamic. The dynamic determines the result. Robert Cialdini described the principle of consistency. People seek coherence in their own behavior and in others. When your presence is predictable, cooperation becomes easier because you stabilize the frame. Your predictability becomes an anchor. An anchor steadies interaction. Steady interaction reduces unnecessary escalation. Erik Erikson linked identity to continuity over time. You are not what you do once, but what you repeat. In confrontation, repeated calm becomes a behavioral signature. Signature inspires trust. Trust invites responsibility.
Responsibility brings leadership roles, not because you demand them, because you fit them. Peter Drucker observed that effectiveness means doing the right things consistently. On a personal level, the right thing is emotional regulation repeated over time. Without it, technical competence loses impact. Impact comes from reliability. Reliability lowers perceived risk. Lower risk increases granted trust. Machiavelli warned that extremes erase the merits of the average. A single emotional collapse can undo months of stability. Social memory retains deviations, not routine. That is why consistency is not optional. It is daily discipline. Feel anger, process it privately. Feel frustration, translate it into clarity. Feel pressure, convert it into structure. The public sees only presence. Repeated presence becomes standard. Charles Duhigg showed how habits create automatic behavior. When calm becomes routine, you no longer expend effort producing it. You are calm without visible strain. Effortless control signals maturity. Maturity commands respect. Respect outlasts fear. Fear fades in absence. Respect persists in memory. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. There is, however, a higher tier, to be regarded as unshakable. You do not provoke fear. You do not seek affection. You project stability. Stability becomes social armor. When reputation precedes you, you no longer enter each conflict as unknown. You enter as reference. People adjust tone, choose words carefully, avoid escalation. Reputation negotiates before you speak. And when provocation does occur, the context favors you. Witnesses know your history of composure. The presumption of stability works in your favor. Frame advantage is already secured. Daniel Kahneman explained how persistent patterns become cognitive shortcuts. He's steady. She's composed. These heuristics quickly determine who receives trust. Trust accelerates agreement. Agreement reduces friction. Reduced friction increases effectiveness. This is mature power, influence through consistency, not performance, practice. If you followed this path to the end, you already feel the difference between reacting and controlling the frame. And if you want to keep exploring the real mechanics of personal power, support the work. A like helps the message reach where it's needed, and a subscribe keeps you close to what comes next. Not for validation, for continuity. Calm is not a momentary tactic. It is an identity built over time. Build it deliberately. Maintain it consistently. Let it speak before you do. Remain unshaken.